Skillful listening involves being able to select important information from the rest. Unfortunately, as Simon Williams points out, many speakers have techniques to help guide you through their lecture and to highlight key information.
You can often recognise the different bits, different parts of a lecture by three things. First of all, the lecturer's intonation, the sound of their voice is going to fall. It's going to get quieter at the end of a topic, rather like my voice is fading and getting quieter now. And then they might use a marker word such as right, OK, good. The sort of thing you often hear teachers saying in a classroom, in a school classroom. And then there'll be a marker phrase such as I'd like to move on now, or turning now to, or let's now consider. So the speaker is self-consciously saying what they're going to do next in speech terms, in language terms. So you can think of those markers as signposts on the journey through the lecture.
Good lecturers guide listeners through their talk. Their intonation and stress patterns act as pointers to important information. Falling intonation helps you know when a speaker's finished one idea or topic and is about to move on to the next, at a higher pitch. This is, if you like, the spoken equivalent of the full stops and paragraph breaks in a book. Speakers tend to stress important points by speaking more clearly, perhaps a bit louder, more slowly, and with greater care. This lecture was originally given by Don Hill of University College London. It focuses on the relationship between wealth and happiness. Now, don't worry too much about the specific content of what he's saying. Listen instead to the way he says it. I'd like you to try and spot any signals that guide you through the talk or help you to identify key points. What do you consider to be the most important piece of information here, and why?
OK, that brings me to the end of that second main part of this little talk on some contrasts with traditional economic views. Right, let's go on to the third part, which I've called What Price Happiness? So I now want to raise some questions about happiness. The effect of the questions will be, I think, to cast further doubt.
The speaker has reached the end of section 2 of his talk. His intonation falls, the pitch and music of his voice get lower, and he gets quieter before he introduces the next section. His intonation then rises again. He gets louder and speaks carefully as he highlights what he considers to be an important point. And that's the title of the next section of his lecture. What Price Happiness? Listen again.
OK, that brings me to the end of that second main part of this little talk on some contrasts with traditional economic views. Right, let's go on to the third part, which I've called What Price Happiness? So I now want to raise some questions about happiness.
The speaker also uses a number of what Simon Williams calls marker phrases, such as, that brings me to the end of the second part of this little talk, and let's go on to the third part. These are like mini announcements or signposts within the lecture. You'll hear more examples of these markers as the lecture continues. The speaker has a number of questions, but what's the most important question he wants to ask? Listen out for clues in his intonation and stress.
So I now want to raise some questions about happiness. The effect of the questions will be, I think, to cast further doubt on traditional views of the desirability of uncontrolled economic growth. The first question is this: can we really make a direct link between cash and happiness? We've seen that the traditional economist's view of rational economic man is that he tries...
The speaker invites his listeners to focus on this important question. Can we make a direct link between cash and happiness? His intonation, the higher note, the slower speed and careful stress all indicate that we should pay attention to these words. Two marker phrases, so I now want to raise some questions, and The first question is this. Also point us in this direction.